Hello, everybody. We are ready to the next session where we are going to listen and hear some insights on one of the winners from yesterday's award show, Aardman, actually nominated in 2 categories, and I have to say my personal favorite. Please welcome Matt Sutherland and Thorne.
Don't know why there was a beat there. So, hi, welcome to our talk about our collaboration with Aardman and how we helped them create a platform for them that was flexible, scalable, and performant. And if you don't know Aardman, they're the creators of Wallace and Gromit, Shaun the Sheep, Morph, and amazing, lovable characters. And very quickly, this is Shaun, one of our talented developers in the tech team at True, who's often found tinkering around with technology and was a big part of the delivery for phase 1 of Aardman and our ongoing relationship with them. I'm Matt Sutherland, the head of tech at True, a new addition to the Umbraco back office community team. And this lovely chap on the side is George Rowe, who is a digital producer, Aardman, and one of our key stakeholders in our collaboration with them. And George is going to do a little bit of scene setting for us, and then he's going to come back at the end and talk about some of the impact for Aardman via the medium of pre-recorded video. And a little bit about True very quickly. We're an Umbraco Gold partner. We're based in Bristol, hence a very specific Bristol-based grommet on the side there. And we have a bit of a clear focus on effectiveness for our clients. And we were honored to be nominated for 3 Umbraco Awards: Best Design Site, Best Gold Partner Solution, and delightfully won the Jury's Award yesterday.
Yes! Yes!
I did add pause for applause in there, so I'm glad that you picked up on that. So we're really going to talk to you about 3 key things today. So firstly, what it really means to make a scalable platform, and spoiler, we don't think it's just managing more users arriving on your website. 2, how the concepts of composable DXP allowed us to focus on what Aardman needed for phase 1 and ultimately for the initial corporate site, but also facilitating all of the future growth that we have planned with them. And then thirdly, a little on the issues that we and they were experiencing with their existing ecosystem, and how a bit of a focus on performance and effectiveness for Aardman has led to a 200% increase in session duration, a very big increase in video plays going all the way to the end, and a 15% increase in average number of sessions per user. And then we doubled the traffic arriving from the social media, reduced bounce rates, all whilst managing over 10,000 video plays per month. So starting with the Aardman digital ecosystem, and for a little bit of context, although the initial brief was for Aardman.com, they also have 6 other sites in their ecosystem, and that's predominantly those fan sites for Wallace and Gromit and Shaun the Sheep, Timmy Time, Morph, etc., etc. And just to do a bit of setup, I'll let George talk you through that.
So the biggest problem we had with our old site, well, there was a few things, to be honest. So we kind of tried to make it an archive of like all the work we'd ever done. And Aardman as a business does lots and lots of things and lots of very different things. The sort of user journey through it and the journeys for different types of users have become quite unclear. Partly that, partly it was built with WordPress, and it was built with a sort of WordPress front-end framework that had stopped being supported quite a few years ago. It was technologically getting very creaky around the edges. Made it very difficult to work with the back end, very difficult to find things. Lots of the reordering stuff that we used just didn't work anymore. Some of our fan websites for like Wallace and Gromit, Shaun the Sheep, etc. Some were Drupal, some were WordPress, some were like just hard-coded HTML. And it just became, you know, for the small marketing team who were trying to keep up across all these different things, it became a huge task. So basically, it wasn't really like fit for purpose for what we wanted it to do.
So yeah, I think George does a really good sum up there of their biggest challenges. They just had loads of different ways of updating loads of different sites. Content editors, administrators had loads of different processes, different things they needed to learn, and couple that with quite a strict and inflexible set of templates. The Aardman.com site itself was just hard to update, difficult to manage, and ultimately just disparate in its architecture.
Yeah, which are all risks for Aardman and their ambition for scalability. So what do we really mean by a scalable technological platform? And although I said earlier that it's not just managing users on your website, it is, of course, some of that. And you do need a website that can remain performant and reliant when there's a spike in traffic. And particularly if, as they did, Aardman released the news that Wallace and Gromit are returning to the big screen on the same day that they announced that Chicken Run 2 is in the works. And we saw a massive spike in traffic, as you can imagine, as people are flowing to the website to check up on the news. Thankfully, we stood the test. But outside of that, and just visitors, a scalable platform means that there's the ability for the site to scale to the content available and across the site, and also for a single page. The ability to be fit for purpose and improve a digital landscape from day one, but not limit that platform possibilities and the future growth. And a platform that is easy to update, easy to manage, and joined up in its architecture. And also the ability to be brought to market quickly and continue to do that growing over time in accordance with ongoing and evolving requirements. Aardman themselves are an ever-growing business, and they are far, far away from where they started 40 years ago as a stop-motion animation company. And as they continue to grow, we need the site to be scalable to their ever-growing offering.
So to achieve this for Aardman, we implemented these 3 key pillars in a DXP. So the first pillar was a composable DXP, utilizing a headless architecture built around the concept of reusable components. And we're just going to go into a little bit more detail about each of these points now.
So we've heard a lot about composable DXPs over the course of Code Garden already, but a traditional DXP is a monolithic product that provides a suite of tools powering the delivery of connected, contextualized experiences, which is a complicated way of saying that a DXP tries to solve everything for everyone. And this has some drawbacks. As with some traditional DXPs, that means that the tools that you can use are pre-selected on your behalf, and that you're limited to those that have been selected. And this can have a negative impact for your end client if their requirements for things like personalization can't be met by that pre-selected tool, or if your commerce needs are better suited to a different provider rather than the one that is platform specific. And it can also mean that you are paying for all of those tools within that DXP suite, regardless of if you are actually currently using them within production or if you ever will. And these limitations are where we see the composable DXP fitting in. And a composable DXP allows that complete flexibility around the solutions that are integrated to create a very specific DXP. Each tool can be selected based upon its ability to meet the specific requirements for that client and that platform. And importantly, they're only integrated when they're needed, only paid for when they're used, and you can be flexible to any existing platform decisions that the client may have already made. And this is particularly important as this is a big advantage for our clients, because another client that we have outside of Aardman had already used pre-selected a tool for the way they manage forms, the way they manage their campaigns, and even a different analytics suite that they were using. And actually the nature of composability that meant that even though they're using a similar architecture to what we have with Aardman, we were able to pull out those components and put something else in, and it was all good. So specifically for Aardman, whilst working with them, based upon the user research that we did, the audience insight and some persona development that we did, along with some client discovery sessions, it became clear that there are many, many things that this platform might need to do over the course of its lifespan. And the beauty of utilizing a composable approach to this is that we were able to prioritize what they needed for launch, and then we can iterate on that as we need to and plug those other components in as we go. And for what that meant for Aardman was that we delivered everything on that list apart from personalization and commerce. That's because Aardman already has a standalone Shopify site, which manages their Grommet Unleashed online shop, where you can buy things like that little grommet over there. And integrating that into our platform in the future has actually become a little bit easier, should we want to, because Umbraco, there's an integration now with Shopify. And also, for personalization, we actually already have Spike in development using new marketing within the platform, but that was mainly just a test that we could, and we really see in a future release when we're working with them on their fan sites, that's when personalization will actually provide the biggest benefit to them, and then we can reevaluate which tool is the right one for that moment.
So with that in mind, another architecture diagram to look at. This was our launch day architecture. And as you can see, on the bottom right here, the fan sites weren't part of phase one, but they were a key part in how we thought about moving our architecture forward within Aardman. So we knew that Umbraco needed a couple of things, and we knew they needed their CMS to be flexible, powerful, and pretty much easy to use. The easy-to-use element was particularly important for, as George mentioned earlier, what's clearly important is content. And we needed content editors and administrators to be able to insert content very easily, manage form data very easily, without masses of training, without tons of explanation and lots of documentation to read. We just wanted to give them a little bit of clarity in how they can achieve their day-to-day tasks. Now, a real drawback of their previous websites was that it was just everywhere. It was just chaotic. It became a bloated archive of well over 800 different articles, case studies, and etc. So with the WordPress integrations they were using becoming outdated and unsupported, the administration of the site just became difficult to achieve. It became difficult to navigate. It became difficult to update. So we saw Umbraco, obviously, as the perfect answer to the CMS element for our DXP. And when we showed it to Aardman, they loved it. They absolutely loved it. So we'd use the headless architecture in a different way. So what we're actually doing is we're using a custom render controller instead of hardcore. Instead of outputting views, we output JSON. Doing a custom implementation of a headless architecture came with a lot of problems. It came with a lot of problems. The biggest one was preview. It was notoriously difficult to solve. But we overcame this by just initially intercepting the preview call and figuring out a nice way for the front end to authenticate with the back end. And through a little bit of magic, we can return an unpublished content version of the page to the front end without changing the front end. So there are many different ways that we could have accomplished the headless architecture, and Umbraco has a fantastic suite of tools available to do that. But we wanted to keep things in-house a little bit more.
Yeah, and one of those main reasons was to do our own implementation, is to make sure we have that absolute control over the way the applications are set up. And this gives us the visibility of how they're performing and the ability to tweak their architecture as we see fit, which we have done on multiple occasions since we launched. And Azure plays a key role in the way we have architected the entire platform. To enable the headless architecture, we actually have a separate web app for both the back end and the front end. And this split server architecture has also allowed us to easily load balance just the front end server without the usual overheads that you might get when you're also trying to do the back end. And obviously, using Azure as a hosting platform or as part of a DXP is not unique to us. It's how Optimizely or Sitecore also host their applications, but ultimately, again, it's about having that control over how we're hosting and the cost implications to the client. And again, the control of the Azure implementation is important, as that's the way we're able to deliver the content going forward, hopefully, to multiple sites when we think about the fan sites. And it's also the way that we're able to make the Aardman platform really interactive, intriguing, and playful, because we are able to focus on the performance. And this is obviously important when benchmarking against something like Lighthouse, or when we're trying to look at core web vitals and passing those requirements. Hopefully. Yeah.
So, the third pillar, reusable components. So we use components as building blocks. And we introduced this as an implementation to facilitate the scalability. And a reusable component is essentially the concept of having a component that can be used across any page, any template, and any site. Administration is made easier. Content entry is made easier because the interface is the same. The interface is familiar across all of the components, across all of the sites, across all of the pages. So content can be built up quite rapidly, and components like video players, promotional CTAs, social components, they can all be added easily across multiple pages while only needing to be created once. So for Aardman, being able to build the content up rapidly was particularly important. Sometimes they will often need to get a press release out quick, or a quick update to fans, especially about Chicken Run 2 or Wallace and Gromit. And being able to do this quickly and efficiently with components was a huge asset to them. And the best thing about being able to add it to any page is there's not a huge list of prerequisites to get that content live. They add what they need, they publish what they want, and it's live. There isn't a huge list of hoops they have to jump through in order to get their quick content they want out fast. And best of all, it doesn't look like the page isn't finished. If you have to shoehorn content onto a page to get it live, sometimes you put a lot of filler words in, and it looks incomplete. So essentially, it's introducing graceful degradation of content.
Yeah, and so we want to try and just show you a bit of an example around what we consider to be graceful degradation of content. I'm going to try and live narrate this, so let's see how that goes. So for Jingle Bell Flock, we have this author component just there. And the header image, and then the rest of the page is fundamentally built up of copy blocks, our video component, and then driving people towards the main purpose of the page, which is this author component and the Get in Touch CTA, which is driving inquiries for Aardman. And then we have this production spotlight article, which doesn't need an author component, therefore it just doesn't show. It doesn't need a specific custom image, therefore we have a fallback for the thumbprints. And then the rest of the page is built up of image and content blocks. We're not driving people to drive inquiries, so we don't show it, basically. And then finally, a really rapid article that needed to be thrown up to partner the Shaun the Sheep Royal Mail collaboration. So it's just got the header components, a short bit of content, and then we're trying to push the user to other news articles by introducing this gallery, more news component. And hopefully that sort of demonstrates the same page type, an article serving 3 different purposes with 3 different combinations of components, but all looking like they're doing exactly what they should be, and that they have all of the content they need without needing to shoehorn in 4 other things because of heavy prerequisites that might have existed in the previous platform. And then another huge benefit of the component-based approach is that when you couple it with a headless architecture, we're actually able to completely change how that component could look depending on its purpose, and even depending on which site it's on. So these pages are a sneak peek at the work we're doing in the upcoming fan sites phase with Aardman, including here the home pages for Robin, Shaun the Sheep, and Morph. It's cool, right? Anyway, and our component-based approach allows us to deliver a consistent data structure to each of those fan sites, but the way we want them to look isn't limited to the way that we created them for Aardman.com. And as you can see, they're the same components, the same tone of voice, but with hopefully enough individuality whenever it's needed to facilitate the wider needs of each individual brand site. So, we said we would walk you through our pillars for the scalable platform, how having a composable DXP allowed us to provide and prioritize delivery for what was absolutely crucial for launch, whilst also giving Aardman the platform that they need to continue to grow, and how a focus on the performance and effectiveness would make a difference ultimately for Aardman. So hopefully this will be a nice video of George talking about that.
Yeah, everyone's been really impressed with the new look, really loved how easy it is to use, how easy it is to navigate, and how it's kind of solved, some of those problems about how we present different parts of the business. Because of that, we've seen our average session duration increase by 200%, and the bounce rate has improved massively. One of the key goals of the website was to ease the path through to people making inquiries about different business areas, and you can see from using it how much easier it is to get from a piece of content to making contact with us. The most obvious and most significant benefit for me, not thinking about stat, but the fact that we really feel we've got a website that better represents Aardman as a business. So I feel like now we've got a website that really sort of represents the company as it is now, and hopefully we'll continue to do that for the future.
So obviously, working on Aardman was an absolute pleasure, and it's been great to spend a little bit of time talking to you guys about what we did with them. I think we're also on the panel in a minute, so yeah, if you want any questions, ask us then. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.